Welcome, team. Welcome to this episode of Inside the Man, where we have brought on Craig White, who has worked in and been obsessed with human performance for the last 30 years, from rugby pitches to boardrooms, from elite sports team members to men's leadership, and a journey that has shaped the men he works with and also shaped himself, from chasing outcomes to exploring what it truly means to lead as a man, a father, a partner, and a human. Now he mentors high performing leaders and runs Craig White Mentoring, helping blokes drop their armor they've been carrying for years. A coach, a breathwork teacher, and a man who's now gone from militant warrior to opening his heart. Craig, welcome to the show, man. It's an absolute
Thank you.
pleasure to have you on here today. And I actually I just want to go back to the Wigan. You entered coaching at 16 years of age, which is a very young time to entering into a world like this. So obviously you entered into a field that was very, say, quote unquote, macho, if that's the term we can use for this. When you were going into that, what was the attraction to that in the first place? What was that? Was that pulling you out of something, or was there just a deeper attraction to that was bringing you into the programs?
It's a good question. The reason I got into coaching at 16 is because I was the first ever year to do PE GCSE, and we had an amazing PE teacher who loved rugby, and he loved us because we were good at rugby, and he mentored us, and he was one of the most significant mentors in my life. And he organised for about 10 of us to do the rugby league coaching level 1 at age 16. So that's why I did that. But I loved it. And then I went back to the school when I was about 18, 19, and I coached the school team for a while, and I just loved it. And that at that time, I also expected, because that was the path that people had put me on, to sign professional for Wigan as a rugby league player. And my life was dedicated towards that, but it wasn't happening. So I kind of went off the rails a little bit because I realized it wasn't happening. I realized it was probably not going to happen. And eventually I kind of realized that I had this natural talent for coaching people. Initially, it was about telling people what to do until I developed more range and more skills and capacity to connect and get people's own wisdom from within them. But yeah, I was about 19 and I was working in a pub, and I was a bit lost. And a guy called Andy Clark came in the pub, and he was a brother of a famous rugby league player called Phil Clark, and they run a company at the time. And this company was a strength and conditioning company for rugby teams. And Andy was one of the first conditioners in professional rugby. So I decided to go back to university because I had his backing. He wanted me to be an apprenticeship for him. And then basically throughout my whole degree and my master's degree, I was working under him. And then when I finished my master's degree, I was ready to go. And that's when I started working for Ireland.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you met a mentor at a young age.
Yeah.
This man came into your life and he was guiding you through that
Yeah.
age, and he was like,
Yeah.
that was the direction you were going to go. But then you
Yeah.
decided, no, that wasn't actually, because you mentioned expected of you. So that was that like your first break away from that identity, or what was going on with you then?
Well, the channel that put me towards being a professional rugby league player was where I grew up, the town I grew up in, the school I went to, my mother and father. I was good at it, so I got kudos for it. So I thought, wow, as a kid, that if you're good at something and you can grasp onto it and you get love from mum and dad for doing it, you do more of it.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't sign professional, I realized that it wasn't really my model of the world. It was somebody else's. And when I look back at it all, I kind of liked being around the guys, but I don't know if I really enjoyed playing, if I'm being honest. So I guess reflectively, luckily, looking back at that, I did pull away. It was the first time in my life where I was like, no, I'm not actually going down that route. I'm not pushing for this contract. I'm going to go in this other direction, which seemed to be the closest thing to professional rugby playing was professional rugby coaching. So I carved out a very successful career in professional rugby for a while.
And was that hard for you to separate yourself to go? No, okay, I know this is the path for me, but this is where I'm going. Like, what was?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. I stopped playing rugby when I was rugby league when I was 23 because I went to uni as a mature student, and I remember crying. I remember crying in front of the team on stage, saying, "Look, it's not for me anymore. I know that there's something calling me in this coaching. I'm passionate about it. Like
Mm.
I managed to grab hold of a passion. Like I'm really passionate about coaching, and I wasn't passionate about playing, if I'm being honest. So I guess I found my passion at a relatively young age, even though it was confusing for a number of years, and I was lost for a while.
And would you consider that, passion and purpose, is that the similar thing? Would you say it tied into the same thing?
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think they do. I think they do tie into the thing because on the outside it can look like we have a purpose and we're going for something, but if we don't choose that purpose, and if it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
connected to our heart, and if it's not connected to um, what we're talented at, and a real felt sense of purpose, then for me it's not a purpose that's gonna lead you to happiness. You know, a lot of
Mm.
men seek purpose and think they have to have a purpose, but unfortunately, they all relate that to protecting and providing and financial security, and it doesn't always bring satisfaction. For me, if a purpose, and every man does need a purpose, as every woman needs a purpose, but for me, the purpose is if it lights you up and it opens your heart, then it's a purpose that's going to lead you towards happiness and self-actualization and yeah, and a life of love.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, even as you're saying that, I'm there's a sense, because I'm thinking about what something that I found myself deeply connected to now in the most recent years. Now, obviously, you were 23. It's coming to an age now where, like, I'm moving into my 30s and stuff like that. But at an age of 23, when you started to connect to a passion, and you talk about purposes more that's connected to the heart, were you hard connected at that age in the environment you were in, or is that something that coaching has brought out in you as a person?
Brilliant question, mate. Do you know what? Looking back, I think I think my purpose as a coach in professional rugby has always been connected to the heart and connection and brotherhood. However,
Yeah.
a lot of my behaviors were still driven by that old kind of masculine download of conquer, divide, provide, move fast, be dynamic, aim for status, get some cash, look cool, go to the gym, be strong at the expense of everything that I repressed growing up, which was the opposite, which was the sensitivity, the vulnerability, the spontaneity, the slowness, the stillness, the connection to um, the present moment. So
Mm.
it was ignited by my heart, but some of my characters was driven by fear, and some of my behaviors were still driven by the unconscious need to dominate and control.
And those were the characters, and so that was the main driver of who you were at that age. Would you say it was it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always a mixture of flavors happening on the inside of us that affect the way we behave, but definitely back then, um, you know, I was Mr. Go-Getter, I was Mr. Dynamic, I was Mr. Commander. Now, I did have a sensitive side, and that you would see that kind of probably in it when I'd pull a player to one side, or I knew that he needed a hug, or but I wouldn't show it a lot. You know, I wouldn't show it to the group an awful lot. And I didn't show it an awful lot in my intimate relationships. So it like with many men, it was easy for me to show the
Yeah.
dominant, capable provider, mission man, drive, the guy that got shit done. But it was not so easy to show the other side of me, which unfortunately a lot of us call the feminine side. You know.
Mm.
It's like we end up suppressing. I mean, in childhood, we end up repressing what we believed wasn't safe to express, and we
Yeah.
end up showing, as you know, what we believe the world wants us to be like, and what seems to get us respect, validation, love, acceptance, and a sense of belonging. So we end up growing with a split personality, which it's just the nature of life. You know, it has to happen. That split has to happen. And then we develop an ego, and then we have some kind of crisis. And then if we're lucky, we open that door and we reclaim what we repressed growing up, and we become more whole as men. That's been my journey. That's definitely been my journey. And it's not so easy to wrap up in the message of attraction on social media, because we're all
Yeah.
looking for clients. But really, the essence of what I do is I help men to reclaim what they repressed growing up. I help them to create enough safety within themselves to reclaim it all, so that they have more range as leaders and they're not just a one-track pony.
So reclaim, because most of my audience, the guys' careers, they've done very well in their career, and they're starting to branch into personal development. They understand that there's something gone wrong here. Reclaim is like you're talking to what do you mean by this? Like, so from a leadership point of view, you're in a very quote unquote masculine environment. We're talking guys in their shorts, brotherhood, that even testosterone, that's all there. How are you, number one, bringing that out in yourself, and then how are you bringing that out in others, and then how is that developing an impact in the environment itself?
Well, at some point, and I'll relate it to my own life. At some point in life, and it seems to be happening earlier now. You know, everybody used to think the midlife crisis was mid-40s, but for whatever reason, it seems that it can happen a lot earlier now. But at some point in a man's life, if he allows himself to listen and slow down enough, and for me, it was on a yoga retreat in Thailand where I had to slow down because it was the nature of the retreat, but I hadn't slowed down until then. But at some point in a man's life, if he manages to slow down, or if he has to slow down because he's got sick or somebody's died and he's reflecting, stuff will come up for him and life will speak to him through his body. There'll be an inner knowing. There'll be an inner knowing that something needs to change. There'll be an inner turmoil and an inner crisis. And there's somewhere deep within that man's essence that knows he has to change and transform. But at that stage, it becomes quite confusing. Men don't know where to turn. Do they go to the black door, which is ignore this, defend it, distract from it, drink, be unfaithful, watch shitloads of porn, take loads of drugs, watch loads of Netflix, avoid, avoid, avoid? Or does he go through the white door? Right, this is an opportunity for transformation. My dad couldn't do it because he wasn't aware of it. His dad couldn't do it. I'm aware of it. I live in an age now where I can transform. Let's get help. Let's get support. And we go through the white door, which is opportunity. Who can I be? Let's clean my shit up from my past. Let's get into my body. Let's feel safe again. Let's move into a future that I create, not a future that the world creates for me. So just coming back to your original question, I wouldn't kind of use those kind of words if I'm trying to attract a man because I feel I can help him. But initially, the men that approach me, my message speaks to them, you know. So when they come to me, I'm in a pretty fortunate position, to be honest, Paul. I mean, you mentioned earlier to me that you're going to be trained as a psychotherapist. For me, that's great if eventually you can carve out your own way of working. The challenge with a lot of therapists is that they end up in some kind of organization where clients are given to them. And it's not always a good fit. And there's a lot of rules and regulations. I'm blessed because the clients that come to me, they want change. Like I don't have to sell it to them. Of course, there's financial constraints with some people, and we try make that work, or I refer them on. But most clients, they come to me through the clarity of my message. They want change. They've got some idea where they need to change, and they need me to support them through that. And categorically, even if a man comes to me and says, I want to be a better leader and I want to grow my company, when we get under the bonnet, the elephant in the room is not his capacity to build a company, it's his capacity to be intimate within relationships. That is the elephant in the room for men. And for me, I believe the world will be a safer place when men learn how to navigate that intimate space, which starts with themselves and their own body, and then it moves into loved ones, marriages, kids, parents, and then it moves into the corporate teams with reference to my clients.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So intimate relation, because I mean, it does make sense, even in teams, like everything's a relationship, like at the end of the day.
For sure.
And yeah, I like how you really do bring it back to us and the responsibility being on us. And
Yeah.
um, I can tell that from my own experience when I started to, especially the inner critic. I mean, we'll touch on this maybe in a minute. Maybe you've experienced it with your clients or yourself. The inner critic was a massive thing for me because it was a thing that, as we were mentioning, it was inherently grown up with. Um, everything was flawed. Everything was a flawed. And so, developing that own inner relationship and saying, hold on a second, that voice can change, and slowly it started to build and slowly it started to change and slowly my own confidence started to come back and stuff like that. So it is like that, but it's crazy how you were seeing that a man comes to me and this is what he wants. And then when we start to peel underneath this. So just with that in mind, a guy is listening and he has a goal in mind, right? How can he start to, maybe is there a question you'd pose on him right now where you're like, okay, that's the goal, but what actually do you have to look at here?
Mm-hmm. It's difficult one, that, Paul, because a lot, I mean, coming back to the clients that work with me, a lot of them realize already that they're pretty high performing in this corporate sense, but they get into a lot of trouble within work, within the family dynamic, in that exchange from human to human. It's when stuff comes up in our bodies. It's when intimacy is called on. It's when we need to be there and not run away or fight. That's where men struggle. So a lot of them are always, they know they're good in high performance, but they know they're not good in relational skills and intimacy. But if a man, but having said that, I do still get men who, whether it's through fear of saying it or whether it's just unconscious, I do get some men coming to me saying, Craig, I want to be a better leader. So I've got to bring them in on that level. If a guy comes in on that level, I might start with a leadership profile, a sophisticated leadership program that is related to high performance. But within that leadership program, 9 times out of 10, when we do it, we still realize that his biggest challenge is in the area of human intimacy, whether that's his boss in work or a head of his department or a particular person in his organization, or his wife is on the edge of divorce, or it might be one of his kids, or it might be that he's still got extreme triggers around his mother whenever he goes to visit his mother, which also pours over into his intimate relationship with his daughter and his wife and the women in work. So we go into that high performance space, but look, mate, eventually it gets down to a man's relationship with women. That's what it all comes back to in the work that I do. It comes back. Even in my own life, Paul, if you'd have spoken to me 10 years ago, I would have said, my purpose in life is to help men to become extreme rounded leaders so the world could be a better place. Or I would say that that's my purpose. But now I can categorically say at the age of 54 that my vocation is really important to me, but my sole purpose in this lifetime is to continue to learn how to love the woman in me, the woman I'm married to, women in this lifetime, and this planet, which is a symbol of the feminine. That's it for me. That's it for me. Because if that happens, the world is a better place, and women can walk round on the streets feeling safe instead of being worried that they're going to get taunted, abused, groped. So for me, sometimes as men, we waste our fucking time believing that our purpose in life is to grow this fucking amazing business. Okay? For me, our purpose in life is to learn how to love this innocent, sensitive, loving person inside of us and transfer that into the world of women and the world at large.
When I'm hearing that, it's said with conviction. It's said with like, this is 100%. This is what I'm doing with my life, right? I don't think there's a step-by-step. There is no protocol. There's no framework. There's no like mentor that can put the words in your mouth. That's clearly something that's vibrationally from a deeper soul level.
Yeah.
That journey of self-discovery, is that something that we should start to turn at, or is there at any age, or should we actually build ourselves up at some point and go into the workforce? Obviously, we shouldn't retreat from reality altogether. Like, that's just a given. But that journey of self-discovery, when can we start to see that and say, oh, hold on a second, like, what am I deeply connected to?
100%. I'm talking about my journey here, and I do believe at large, it does need to happen with men. And there's no, look, business is important to me, Paul. Money's important to me.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I've just got to keep checking myself. Is she safe? Is she seen? Is she valued? Are we having intimacy windows? Is she happy? Am I happy? How's the relationship? Because look, when the relationship is on, it brings me so much joy, more than any business can do. Okay. And when we get skillful as navigating this world as male leaders, we can still have a successful business and we can still have a beautiful relationship with a woman and women in life. So they can coexist. But again, coming back to your question, we're all different. Pain is the doorway. The categorically 100% truth. Whether it's the pain of your inner experience, or somebody's died in your life, or you've got divorced, or you've got extreme conflict with someone, or you got sick, pain is the doorway to transformation. We can't avoid that. But coming back to what you said about this relational piece, can you imagine if in an ideal world within school, you and I had a module at age 5, and the module was intimacy.
Yeah.
And within that module, we learn about being kind to our own body, being kind with the way we speak, being kind in the way we connect with the opposite sex, consent, respectful communication. Can you imagine how the world would be different? So really, this relational stuff, whether we call it relational fitness or we call it relational skills, it needs to happen at a young age.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, Paul, rewind through your own life. When do you get in trouble? It's when there's some kind of relational conflict.
That's true. Yeah.
And if it's not with someone else, it's with yourself. It's beating yourself up.
I remember I read, I know you got him on your podcast, where Robert Augustus Masters talks about, to be a man, it's to live with the heart, the head and the guts.
Robert's big mantra is be intimate with all of it.
Be intimate with all of it. Yeah. Such a beautiful expression of it, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, like, I suppose, guys, for you listening, I'd say something for you to ponder on is, like, look at the situations that I've had in your life. Like, is it a relationship issue of some sort? Probably a relationship with yourself, relationship with partner, like any of the quote unquote bad stuff that has happened. Does that tie back to a relationship issue? Just on that, Craig, obviously, okay, you've, from say Robert's point of view or even your point, you've softened yourself. And this is not, we're not saying like going into the world of you're a soft man or whatever. Like, actually, what's wrong with
Yeah.
that? What is actually wrong with that? For guys, and I've seen this with myself with guys, it could be 5, 6 sessions by the time we actually can get sometimes into the meat of the work because there's an armor still there. And yet these guys are naturally drawn to personal development. It's like, I know I want to. When you're working with guys, and you've obviously seen it in the teams and stuff like that, with that higher intensity or armor that has built up, what is happening there for them? Like, how are they dropping into their bodies more? Is it first introducing them to something like yoga or breathwork, and then slowly but surely they're learning to get in touch with that more feminine side of themselves?
Well, the greatest teacher, Paul, is what we model, not what we say.
Yeah.
So again, I'll come back to my clients see something in me that they want to step into, and it's probably this guy that's worked at in elite rugby in this macho sport, that's been this commander and this dynamic presence and good at galvanizing and driving. And in recent years, especially over the past 15, 16, 17 years, can access the other side of that, which for me was repressed growing up. So growing up, Paul, I learned that what was safe was being strong, being fast, being dynamic, never stopping, always being on time, getting shit done, providing, protecting, being really good at sport, unfortunately, conquering women, and so on and so on. And everything else was repressed. So I repressed being slow. I repressed talking slow. I repressed being still. I couldn't be still. I repressed sensitivity. I repressed non-linear ways of moving, which also leads to repressing non-linear ways of thinking and feeling. I repressed gentleness. So all that kind of softness, if you like, was repressed in me. And when I've kind of journeyed through life, and the most painful realization was after I completed this yoga retreat in 1990. Sorry, I can't remember the year, but anyway, 2008 maybe. It's like I completed this yoga retreat and I had to be slow and stop for a month, which was really fucking difficult. And then everything came flooded back, and my attention went straight into childhood. What happened there? Why was I pissed off with my dad? Had my mum been a great mum? Why did I inflict greatness on her? And I never said that she did anything bad. Did my brother really bully me? What happened in school? Why did my mum always teach me to fight on the street? So there's a lot of stuff coming up, and that took me on a journey of self-discovery. But what I'm trying to say is ultimately I've managed to reclaim some of that. And what it doesn't do, right? It doesn't remove the part of me that is determined, disciplined, grounded, commanding. Like I can stand on stage and I can be soft and I can cry. And I can stand on stage and look you fiercely in the eye and say, mate, if you don't fucking do that, you're not going to change. So what I'm trying to say here is a lot of men fear that if they get in touch with the softness and the gentleness and sad, they allow themselves to cry and they allow themselves to be angry and they allow themselves to feel the guilt and feel the shame. They think that they'll lose something. But in my beingness, which is my greatest teacher to another man, I've not lost anything. I've just reclaimed more of what was repressed. So that gives me what I call more range as a leader. And more range as a leader, especially more emotional range, means that because I've felt all those feelings in my body and they're not repressed like they used to, if you cry in front of me, I can hold that. If you're angry towards me, I can hold that. If you show fear to express your fear with me, I can be with you in that for you and let you know it's okay. If you want to be joyful and playful and goofy and funky, I can be that. But if you haven't reclaimed all of that, you're at work, somebody cries in front of you and it triggers the life out of you, and you try and fix them or devalue them, or somebody's angry and you start fighting with them, or one of your kids says, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, I'm scared," and you say, "Come here, what are you scared for?" If we've not felt all of this repressed stuff inside of us, it'll keep being reflected back to us. If we've not felt our own sadness, life will reflect to us that it's wrong to be sad. So we have to do that inner work. So that inner work for me is reflected through the way I live my life and the way I am with my clients. I can teach them loads of things, but ultimately my greatest teaching is how I show up in the world. And we have to go on a journey of reclamation to really reclaim our wholeness as men. Otherwise, we're worried what people think. We go into a situation where there's lots of women and our nervous system freezes, which it used to do for me. We go to somebody's wedding and we're told that we have to go and have a dance and we have to sink 4 pints before we go on the dance floor. We end up living inauthentically because we can't resource all parts of ourselves.
Did you ever come across the ideas of becoming quote unquote too big for your boots? Like, when you start to embrace more, starting to put yourself out there more.
Of course. My
Yeah.
mum taught me not to. My mum told me not to show off. My
Yeah,
mum said,
Rory.
my dad said, if I earn 30 grand a year, I'm in the top bracket. I remember 15, I don't know, it could have been 20 years ago. I can't remember. But let's say 15 years ago, working with a coach because I'd come out of full-time rugby. And for a while, I pushed it away. I was projecting my own shit on rugby. Actually, for a while, I was projecting
Oh,
my own anger onto the world of rugby. Rugby's egoic. Rugby's this. Rugby's that. Instead of owning my shit. But
yeah,
anyway,
right.
during that time, I needed to work with a coach because I needed to create my own business. I didn't know how to run a business. I was shit scared. Nobody taught. My dad didn't run a business. My mum didn't run a business, and I worked with a coach. And I remember him saying to me, "Craig, you need a website with your name on." And I was like, "Why? I don't want to put my name on a website." And then he's like, "You need an Instagram channel." What? Yeah, but can I call it something different? You need to put photos on Instagram. I don't want to put photos on Instagram. You need to do videos. You need to do a podcast. It's just business is a spiritual pursuit. If you perceive it that way, it's just a process of getting over yourself.
Mm.
And the more we do this work, and we realize that actually, I can create safeness in my body. Well, yeah, I do feel safe. It does feel yummy inside. I can hang out here for a while. I don't have to distract myself. And then it's like when we feel safe here, the world reflects safety back to us. Look, it's a cliche in this world of psychology. You and I hear it all the time. So within, so without. The outside is a reflection of the inside. But for me, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I used to live life and I'd meet someone for the first time and I wouldn't trust them. It's like, I fucking don't trust him. And now it's completely different. I'm attracting people who I trust in an instant, because I feel safe in myself, or I feel more safe in myself. I've still got work to do, as we all do. Life
Yeah.
gives us the work to do. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's an interesting thing. There's a thread there I've just after noticing. You said life gives us the work to do. How, like, guys, I genuinely, like, if there's one thing, like, I genuinely, when you start to see life like that as this incredible systems that's just feeding you, like, it's always trying to balance out your psyche. Like, that's what Jung says. It's this, there, it creates these situations for you to individuate. So yeah, like, when did you start to shift that in that direction? Because it's almost nearly even a spiritual
Mm,
way of
mm.
looking at life. It's not me; it's the whole experience.
Well, for me, and this relates to Robert's teachings as well, Robert Masters, it's another way of saying to fully experience life, we have to be intimate with all of it. another way of saying that is to fully experience life, we have to let life in. And
Yeah. Wow. That's good.
to let life in, we have to feel all of it. But what we do is we compartmentalize, don't we? It's like, well, that's nice. That feels nice. I want to do more of that, but I don't want to feel that. So I'm going to avoid that. So we just
Mm.
end up living inauthentically. But again, trying to come back to that question, look, maybe it's just a belief of mine, but I do believe that life presents us with opportunities to transform day by day by day. I'll give you an example. And I do believe that life wants us to feel all of it. It's saying here, feel it all. It's like, for example, you can't feel joy if you can't feel sadness, period.
Yeah.
Period. You can't. But if you feel sadness and you go through it, on the other end is authentic joy. It's like joy that you've never felt before. Joy without an ecstasy tablet, joy without a pint, joy without watching porn, joy without validation. It's just joy. If I fall back into default mode and I work, right? Something will happen where I've got to take a rest. My shoulder injury will flare up, or I'll have a pain in my neck, or my body will be so fucking sore, or I'll get a cold. Let's give you a more extreme example. Like if a guy is on the treadmill 24/7, go-getter, aiming for millions and more millions and more millions and more millions. He's got 6 kids. He's under pressure, but he's also avoiding his feelings. He just keeps going to avoid himself. Eventually, something's going to happen. He could break his leg. He could be on the edge of divorce. His dad might die, and life will force him to stop. Because it's only when we stop and soften that we can feel. So coming right back to your other question, because you said previously, what kind of stuff would I do with a guy to help him soften? So I'll bring it back to that now. If we don't stop and soften in some kind of way, we will never feel anything. Ever. So stopping and softening is a real doorway into reclaiming those parts that we repressed growing up. And it can feel scary for a man. That's why, for example, breath work has become really, really popular. Because with breath work, the nature of it, if it's facilitated well, is your body actually has to soften and it has to release. You may hold on, and try to prevent that. And the body's intelligence, sometimes that might be necessary. You can't just let it all out in one session, but there has to be a release into softness. It's the same with a yoga practice. It's designed in a way that eventually there has to be some kind of internalization and some kind of release and return to softness. It's the same with any somatic practice, which you and I know is some kind of physical practice, whether that's touch or it's the use of sound or it's some kind of movement or it's some kind of intimacy or tantra, sexual union, connection with nature. Whatever that doorway is, it's eventually a doorway into sadness. And with some men, the doorway into into softness, not all men, but with some men, it could even be catharsis. It could be me and you doing shitloads of Wim Hof, like a warrior. And then at the end of that, we allow ourselves to relax and the softness comes. So every man's different, and I've got to kind of tune into men. But compared to 15 years ago, when a lot of my work was sat in circles, which is still a powerful practice, talking, now fast forward 15 years and probably 70% of my work is somatic. It's
Right.
let's simplify this word somatic. So if I do a session with you on a one-on-one, even if it's on Zoom, a lot of what we do will be with your eyes closed and you will be going into the body, accessing different parts, feelings. I may even get you to finish off my sentences, which is called sentence stems. I may get you to do some movement. There may be breath involved. There may be postures that help you to feel certain emotions. But most of my work now is somatic because that is In my experience, where the growth is for men, because mate, I've sat in circles of men. I've been in men's groups, and 6 months down the line, we jump on the Zoom call, or we meet and sit in a circle on a Thursday night, and the guys are still bringing the same stories,
Yeah.
the same loops. Nothing changes. We've got to get into our bodies.
And this is what, look, this is somewhere I actually wanted to bring this conversation, which is interesting how it's brought up, is like men's work. Okay. And it is, look, it's getting more popular. I know you're helping Giles with men's mental fitness, which is bringing more people onto board. It's being more quote unquote commercialized. What is the fight? Like, how do I actually say this? When is it becoming another room for avoidance and comfort? And it's not doing the justice it needs to be doing.
Brilliant question. I talk about this in my book. I've got a book coming out in about a month, which is the title of the book is called Tell the Fucking Truth.
Yeah.
Because that's the essence of it. Or live the truth. But going back to my own story, I talk in the book about when I was on my spiritual quest. So I went on this kind of spiritual quest. I even left my wife, my first wife, and I went on this journey because I believed I could transcend all suffering and become enlightened. So I was on that journey for a while. Now, I could look at that. Within that period, I did teacher trainings. I did 10-day silent retreats, a lot of them. I spent 10 days in complete darkness. Now, part of me, Paul, looks at that and thinks, Craig, in all those meditation retreats, were you just avoiding that relational space? Were you avoiding, did you leave your wife because you were avoiding that real intimate space, which includes fatherhood? And part of me looks back and thinks, maybe when I was sat in those meditations, maybe there was a bit of an avoidance. But mate, Paul, there's another part of me that thinks they were fucking hard.
Yeah.
All those retreats I did were hard. All those long yoga practices were fucking hard. Fasting on water for 21 days was hard. Spending 10 days in darkness was scary. I learned a lot about myself. So one part is saying, Craig, you should have just gone straight to that relational space. Mate, you know now that that's where the work is needed really the most. And it is. In the world, the intimate relational space is where we need to lean into more than ever before. But I also wonder, Paul, if it was a necessary journey for me to get here. You know, did I need to do all that work on my own? You know, did I need to experience all that suffering on my own, intentional suffering? I did so many other things, psychedelics, ayahuasca, San Pedro, to get information that I could work with. And looking back, even after talking to you right now, I might even modify what's in my book in that chapter. I'm looking back, Paul, and I'm actually piecing things together and choosing to believe that I wasn't hiding. It was a necessary journey that I needed to go on. I needed to do solitary things in order to eventually come back into the real relational work. Even after my last long-term relationship, which was a few years ago now, I took a year off, and me and a guy called Pat DeVilly, who you might be aware of, is a breathwork coach, great guy. We weren't in a relationship, and we decided to spend a year off, and we created our own container. We set some rules around not going on a dating site, not dating, not flirting, no porn, be aware of our behavior towards women, all that kind of stuff. John Wineland, the relationship coach, calls it the sacred pause. And we spent 7 to 8 months on this journey, and through the therapy of that and the celibacy, I really fucking transformed. I really, really transformed. I was preparing myself for the relationship, and none of that 8-month journey involved, oh, she's got to be 5'4", she needs to look like this, she needs to have money. None of it was about what she was going to be like. It was all about me. How am I going to show up in relationship? What have my blind spots been so far? What realizing that they were also my dad's blind spots. What am I can do about it? How do I transform those patterns and then put it into practice in my current marriage?
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so I do think that there is a big argument for a man doing a lot of the work on his own, doing some of the work with other men, and then being in the real gladiator arena, which is also an immensely loving arena, which is the intimate relationship with intimate people. You know, that can be
Yeah.
your wife, it can be your kids, it might be your mum or a dad.
Yeah. It sounds like there always has to be challenge involved. Am I
There
right? Like,
always has to be
yeah, yeah,
challenge. Always has to be
yeah.
challenge. At the end of challenge is joy and more joy and more joy and more joy. But there always has to be challenge, and life will present to us an equal amount of support and challenge at all times so we can grow. And one of my old mentors, John D. Martini, said, when we can embrace life like that and hold and welcome the fact that there's always going to be support and challenge,
Yeah.
the equal perceptions bring us into the present moment.
It's
So
fascinating.
John has a very interesting way of looking at things. It's not psychotherapy, it's not somatic work, it's about balancing our perceptions. So that also comes into my work as well, helping men to balance their perceptions. Because if we get cocky, life humbles us. And if we get too hard on ourselves, life gives us a gift. It always wants us to come back to balance.
It's funny. I've recently just started branching into. I was invited to co-facilitate a mother-son retreat, and so my part was
Wow.
to take the boys away from the mothers and bring them into challenge. And one of the co-facilitators there, we bring them out to the bush, light fires. They do hard stuff. One of the co-facilitators there works within youth systems here. So whether they're homeless or they're involved in drugs or something like this, and he was doing them 2 years ago for guys, young guys, ages 13 up to 18. And I was asking him, I was like, what's going on with you? Like, what's the first thing you're doing? He said, Paul, we are humbling them. That is what they have to realize, that their decisions and what they're doing, and we humble them. And they have a
Yeah,
process,
yeah,
their
yeah.
own rite of passage for these boys. And he said,
Beautiful.
the way they come back into the center, the way they treat the women in the center, the way they treat the other people in the center, there's a clear difference between the boys that go and the boys that
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, that's the greatest work, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fabulous work. I did.
I mean,
I had my first.
why do governments not fund something like that?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. So it's fascinating the humbling in what you're saying. So
Mm.
we life gives us those, and sometimes maybe you as a coach have to give that to a man in some
Yeah,
form of way.
yeah,
That
for
this is the
sure.
work for you. You know.
Yeah. Do you know, there's a guy came to me recently. One of the programs I offer is it's like an exclusive one-to-one. There's different components to it, but the center of it is 3 days with me,
Yeah.
where I take them on a really intense journey. And often guys, I'm thinking about the last guy that did it, he'll go home and within a few days, he's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Life's so good. I'm a different man. I've changed. And one of the first things I said to him is, mate, don't get cocky.
Mm.
Do not get cocky, because if you do, life will humble you.
Yeah.
Do not get cocky. Do not stop doing your work. Do not stop sitting on that mat first thing in the morning. Do not stop telling your wife that you love her every day, because, yeah, we get cocky, don't we? You know?
Mm. Yeah, look, we're coming to the end of the show, Craig. It's been, man, absolutely incredible. I really enjoyed your passion and love for what you do, the way you speak, and it's with such conviction, especially around your purpose. Just in terms of like, you're speaking to guys here now, and some advice, right? They're kind of dipping their toes in and out of the water. You're probably going to say go full duck or full dinner now. But yeah, what are some of the defining things that you've learned that you would love to pass on to somebody else?
What's coming to me as I say this, Paul, and it's not something I always say, it's not a rehearsed speech, is I would talk to the guy and I would say, mate, what life taught you about feelings is completely wrong. You were taught that when you feel something uncomfortable, there's something wrong with you. You were taught that when you feel sadness, you're a wuss. You were taught that when you feel anger, you're an aggressor. You were taught that it's not okay to be scared. Imagine if in school growing up, you were taught that pain and challenge, discomfort is a friend. Imagine if you were taught that sadness was a mechanism that your body kicks in whenever it wants you to let go of something and step into a brand new, beautiful life. Imagine if anger was a way for you to protect you and the people that you loved. And if you could just be with it, it would warm you and it wouldn't burn other people. And imagine if your teacher said to you, it's okay to be scared. It's perfectly okay. We all get scared. Imagine how different your life would be. So embrace these feelings in whatever way works for you, whether that is sharing with a friend or joining a men's group or being more open with your kids or being more open with your wife, doing breath work, doing meditation, doing yoga, doing Tai Chi, getting into nature, going on a men's retreat, working with a coach or a therapist, whatever it takes, even if it's just having a brew in front of the fire every morning for 10 minutes and stirring at the fire and putting your hand on your heart and your belly and just being with whatever arises and just telling yourself that you feel safe. Do that for 100 days and see how your life changes.
That's incredible. Guys, I'm going to leave Craig's details at the end of this video or at the end of the show, just underneath. You can click, and I'll leave the book in which I believe you can pre-order right now, Craig. Yeah.
You can, yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
book is called Tell the Fucking Truth, and it does what it says on the tin.
Brilliant. Awesome. Like I said, Craig, it was absolutely brilliant to have you on the show, and thanks so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks, Paul. Been a pleasure, mate. Great questions.